What if I told you that ancient civilizations, thousands of years before telescopes, before satellites, before any modern instrument existed, somehow already knew the exact diameter of the Earth, the precise distance to the Moon, and the fundamental structure of the universe itself, and that scientists only confirmed these facts within the last 100 years? Not myths, not guesses. Confirmed, verified, peer-reviewed science that matches ancient records with an accuracy that should be statistically impossible. We're talking civilizations that supposedly didn't even have the wheel in some cases, encoding knowledge into stone and scripture that no human being of that era should have been capable of possessing. Welcome to Mind Atlas, and today we're going down a rabbit hole that doesn't have a clean bottom. Let's start with something that should immediately stop you cold. The ancient Egyptians, in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, encoded the circumference of the Earth into the structure's base perimeter with an error margin of less than 0.5%. 0.5%. The base perimeter of the Great Pyramid, divided by twice its height, gives you a figure extraordinarily close to pi. And if you scale that number up using the pyramid's own proportions as a ratio, you land almost perfectly on the Earth's polar circumference. Modern geodetic surveys put Earth's circumference at approximately 40,075 kilometers. The figure embedded in the pyramid's geometry gives you something within 170 kilometers of that. These were people using copper tools and limestone. The math should not be there. But it is. And here's where it gets darker. Because the Egyptians weren't the only ones who knew. The ancient Greek philosopher Eratosthenes is famously credited with calculating Earth's circumference around 240 BCE using shadows and geometry. Scientists call this one of the great intellectual achievements of the ancient world, but texts from the Vedic tradition of ancient India, texts that predate Eratosthenes by potentially thousands of years depending on the scholar you ask, contain numerical descriptions of cosmic distances that, when translated from their symbolic language, align with modern astronomical measurements with haunting precision. The Surya Siddhanta, an ancient Sanskrit astronomical text, calculates the diameter of Earth at approximately 8,000 miles. The actual figure is 7,917 miles. That's within 1% accuracy, from a civilization writing before modern mathematics was formalized. But planetary distances are just the surface of this. Let's go deeper. The ancient Sumerians, the oldest known civilization on Earth, created star catalogs that listed star positions and planetary movements with precision astronomers today describe as extraordinary. They tracked the synodic period of Venus, meaning the cycle it takes for Venus to return to the same position relative to Earth, and recorded it as 583.92 days. NASA's current confirmed value is 583.92 days. That is not a close estimate. That is exact. These people had no computers, no space agencies, no orbital mechanics equations. They had clay tablets and observation. And they got it exactly right. Here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. In 1900, Greek sponge divers pulled a corroded lump of bronze from the floor of the Aegean Sea near the island of Antikythera. It sat misunderstood in a museum for decades. When scientists finally analyzed it with modern X-ray technology, they discovered it was a mechanical computer, a device with more than 30 interlocking bronze gears, capable of predicting solar and lunar eclipses, tracking planetary cycles, and modeling the irregular orbit of the moon with a mathematical correction that modern astronomers call the Antikythera mechanism's most shocking feature. That correction, the one accounting for the moon's elliptical orbit, wasn't formally understood in Western science until Kepler described it in the 17th century. The device predates Kepler by roughly 1,600 years. Someone built a machine that encoded knowledge that was supposedly not yet discovered. Who built it? Nobody knows. Where the knowledge came from? Nobody knows. How many other devices like it were made and lost? Nobody knows. Let's talk about the Maya. The Mayan long-count calendar calculates time on a scale so vast and so precise that when modern archaeoastronomers converted its measurements into our dating system, they discovered it accurately predicts astronomical alignments, including the position of the Milky Way galaxy relative to the winter solstice, over cycles spanning 26,000 years. The Mayans called this the Great Year. Scientists call it the precession of the equinoxes. The cycle is caused by Earth's axial wobble as it rotates, something discovered in the modern Western tradition by Hipparchus around 127 BCE. The Mayan system had already encoded it into stone monuments centuries earlier, and their calculation of the cycle's length differs from the modern scientific figure by less than 2 weeks across 26,000 years. 2 weeks across 26,000 years. And now we arrive at the thing that modern physics confirmed only in the 20th century. In ancient Hindu cosmology, specifically in texts like the Upanishads and the Puranas, the universe is described as cyclical, endlessly expanding and contracting, born and destroyed in cycles called kalpas. A single kalpa, one day in the life of the creator god Brahma, is calculated in these texts as approximately 4.32 billion years. For context, the current scientific estimate for the age of the Earth is 4.54 billion years. For further context, the Big Bang is estimated to have occurred roughly 13.8 billion years ago. These ancient texts described cosmic timescales that dwarf human civilization by billions of years at a time, when most cultures were still measuring time in harvests and lunar months. Carl Sagan, not a mystic, not a spiritual figure, one of the most rigorous scientific communicators of the 20th century, said openly that Hinduism is the only religion in which the timescales correspond to those of modern scientific cosmology. He said that, on camera, because the numbers simply match in a way that demands acknowledgement. Now here's the question science hasn't answered and might never fully answer. How? Some researchers argue for a lost civilization, one advanced enough to develop astronomical knowledge and then catastrophically destroyed, leaving only fragments of its understanding embedded in the myths and monuments of cultures that came after. Graham Hancock has made this case extensively, and while mainstream archaeology debates his conclusions, even his fiercest critics acknowledge that the astronomical precision in ancient monuments is real and demands explanation. Other researchers argue for independent development, that humans are smarter than we give early civilizations credit for, that millennia of patient naked-eye observation, combined with sophisticated oral and written traditions, could produce genuine scientific knowledge without telescopes or modern tools. But here's the problem with both explanations. The knowledge appears in cultures separated by vast distances and oceans with no documented contact, the same star catalogs, the same mathematical constants. The same cosmological structures appear in ancient India, ancient Sumer, ancient Egypt, ancient Mesoamerica, civilizations that, by the official historical record, should have had no way to share information. And in every case, when modern science finally caught up with the right instruments and the right frameworks, it confirmed what those ancient records had already stated. There is a third possibility that few mainstream scientists will say out loud, but that some are beginning to entertain in quiet corners of academia. What if human cognitive ability, our capacity to perceive, to intuit, to directly apprehend truths about the physical universe, operated differently in ancient times? What if states of consciousness achievable through ritual, meditation, or practices we now dismiss as spiritual were capable of producing genuine insight into cosmic structures, not as metaphor, as actual knowledge acquisition? Several modern physicists who study consciousness are no longer comfortable laughing at this idea, because quantum mechanics itself has demonstrated that observation and consciousness interact with physical reality in ways that defy the clean separation we assumed existed between the observer and the observed. Ancient people knew the universe breathes in cycles of billions of years. They knew the Earth was a sphere with a measurable circumference before any instrument existed to prove it. They built machines encoding knowledge that wouldn't be rediscovered for 16 centuries. They calculated the movement of Venus to the decimal point. They embedded the precession of the equinoxes into monuments designed to last forever. Science spent the last 2 centuries telling us these were primitive cultures. And then science spent the last 100 years quietly confirming, one discovery at a time, that they were right. The mystery isn't that ancient civilizations knew these things, the mystery is that we forgot they did. And the deeper question, the one that should keep you up tonight, is what else they knew that we haven't confirmed yet. What's still carved in stone somewhere that we don't have the instruments to verify, what's still sitting in untranslated texts, encoded in mythologies we've dismissed as superstition, waiting for science to finally catch up. The universe is older than our arrogance about it, and the people who came before us may have understood it more deeply than we're comfortable admitting. If this kind of content makes your mind work differently, if you want to keep going down these corridors with us, subscribe to Mind Atlas right now. Hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next, because we are just getting started.